Well, we're here for a special purpose, of course, and that's to hear about the review on the wonderful story of A Dog's Journey, written by W. Bruce Cameron. And we're very pleased today that we're having one of our own ministers and friend present to us. Scott is our associate pastor of congregational care, and most all of you know him, so I'm going to just abbreviate this a little bit. And Scott makes the comment about his work that he is empowered by God's love in Jesus Christ through the power of the Holy Spirit. Scott is excited to share Christ's love for him by caring for God's people at First Presbyterian. I think that is quite beautiful. We all know that Scott cares for us a lot, and he does a lot of nurturing and visiting and helps us through some very difficult times. He also provides Christian guidance and support and oversees the church deacons, and he also oversees, of course, the Stephen Ministries. And both the deacons and the Stephen Ministries do a lot in providing service and support to the sick, those in need, the friendless, and those in distress, or many families that are struggling with family situations. He enjoys his position in that he likes to train people, especially using their spiritual gifts and for helping them as far as being caregivers and in caring for others. Scott was previously the senior pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Topeka, Kansas. As a baby, Scott grew up in Dimmitt, Texas. He was an adopted little boy. He then graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree eventually from Texas Tech University and his Master of Divinity degree from Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary. He loves gardening, gourmet cooking, reading, bird feeding, and bird watching. He is married to Suzanne, one of our members, and together they have 3 wonderful children, Samuel, Zachary, and Joshua. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce our pastor and friend, Reverend Scott Simpson.
Well, it's a delight to be with you all again. It's been a while since we reviewed A Dog's Purpose. Since then, this gem has been written by Bruce Cameron. I'll begin with a review of the thesis and the author's purpose. In Bruce Cameron's estimation, this review doesn't really matter. I could call his book an undemanding but harmless retread, or I could call him one of the most brilliant narrative writers who has created a true gem that will definitely pull at your heartstrings in a heartwarming, deeply touching way. I could berate him for taking the human dialogue to a soap opera level in some places of the book, or I could praise him and celebrate his gift of words, and further how he strikes a delicate balance when dealing with difficult and often dark subjects and conveying just the right amount of unease and discomfort to tell the story while maintaining continuity and weaving a powerful positive message that we all need to hear. I could question his taste in choosing a plot device to reincarnate Buddy as different dogs in a sequel who always gets reunited with his girl as she moves through the journey of her troubled life. Or I could delight in Cameron, who creates a canine character who thinks and feels in a way you might expect a dog to think and feel. But if Mr. Cameron, a New York Times best-selling author, well-deserved I might add, an animal lover who truly believes that dogs are amazing and wonderful creatures and that we as humans would be less without them, whatever I say, good or bad, is irrelevant because my words will be quickly forgotten and his book will move on and stand for what it is. What will remain and be forever remembered for Mr. Cameron and many other animal lovers like you and I will be the long arc of his effort in this book, A Dog's Journey, and his thesis to steal our hearts, teach us all life-impacting lessons, and do it all through the eyes, the thoughts, the loyalty, and the love of a dog named Buddy. So was Cameron successful in achieving the author's purpose, the stated purpose of his book? Before you answer my question, I want to ask you a question. How many times did you laugh or cry when you read this book? You don't have to tell me. I personally lost count. And I'm grateful I did. I say yes, Cameron was amazingly successful in achieving his purpose. Now a brief summary of the book. As A Dog's Journey begins, Buddy lives on a farm with Hannah, Ethan's wife, you remember Hannah, where he discovers a little girl named Clarity, Ethan and Hannah's granddaughter, and saves her from drowning and from being trampled on by a horse in a horse stable. In Dog's Purpose, the first book, Buddy searched for his own purpose through several reincarnations and believed he had found it and fulfilled it when he was caring for Ethan. However, on the farm, Buddy discovers his new purpose to watch over Clarity. Listen to Buddy's words. I felt certain that Ethan would want me to watch over Clarity, who always seemed to be getting into trouble. I was pretty sure Hannah would want me to watch over Clarity too. While Clarity is a troubled teenager whose life follows a dark and treacherous past, she endures an eating disorder, suicide, troubled boyfriends, cancer, and more. There's a long list of things. She has, I believe, great character. And that character shines in her relationship of love and loyalty with Buddy and throughout the novel, and with her best friend, Trent, whom she grew up with, who is CJ's rock, and that's another name she went by, and whom she eventually marries at the end of the novel. Gloria, Clarity's mother, is what I like to call a Cruella de Vil type character, who is unhappy, a selfish person, lives an expensive lifestyle she can't afford, and cannot stand dogs, especially Buddy. Throughout the novel, Gloria treats Clarity, or CJ, here's where I'm talking about CJ, as she likes to be called because, quote, Gloria will never have Clarity, and Buddy horribly. I think I heard some snickers from the crowd that you didn't like Gloria either. I know I didn't. She was quite irritating throughout the book, but there for a purpose. Buddy, who in A Dog's Purpose, as you recall, was named Ellie, Bailey, and Toby, was soon reborn as a poodle-spaniel mix, a spoodle, or a doodle dog, as Ethan used to call him, named Molly. Now listen as Buddy discovers he is a female dog. I think I'd known it all along, but one day I was squatting and smelled my urine. It occurred to me that we, her brother Rocky, and Molly weren't brothers, but brother and sister. I was a female dog. As a female dog, Molly loved Clarity as completely and totally and unconditionally as a dog can love a person. Clarity was Molly's girl. She said that many times, Molly did in the book. And Molly protected CJ through all her troubles, the eating disorder, the depression, academic suspension, and at this time in her life, and deep sadness, and especially from Gloria, who was irresponsible as ever, until finally a car accident killed Molly and leaving a distressed CJ. So then Molly is reborn as a Chihuahua Yorkie or Corky mix named Max. Max is an overprotective, tiny dog who bites and barks at everyone, except CJ, who called Max her love dog, and Trent, her faithful friend. Trent's still in the story. Max knows his purpose: take care of CJ and protect her. CJ, at this time in the story, is an actress, a budding actress, and a dog walker who also owns a cat named Sneakers. Now, you know a cat has to finally enter a dog story. And here it is. Here's Sneakers. Max knows where he stands with Sneakers and CJ before a walk. I've seen cats outside and they don't walk with people. However, Susie and I just saw a cat walking with a family the other day, following along, and we were amazed. What's this cat doing? They mostly just walk with themselves. Nearly always when a dog walks, he walks next to a person. This is just one of the many ways that dogs are better than cats. CJ cannot find work. She loses pets. You remember Duke, the big dog she lost? That hurt when she lost Duke. She endures more difficult boyfriends, suffers serious health issues with her kidneys as a result of taking pills and drinking antifreeze. That came back to get her. Wrestles with her feelings about Trent, but eventually marries him in the story, and endures her husband's cancer diagnosis and eventually his death. But Max was loyal through it all and loved CJ and Trent unconditionally until he couldn't muster any strength anymore. Then Max died and was reborn, reincarnated as a beagle named Toby, that same name Buddy was called at the end of a dog's purpose. Toby lived and worked, of all places, in a hospice. And his purpose was to comfort dying patients. Here was the command that he was given that I sensed it took a while for Toby to get. Be still. You remember the command? Be still, go and sit with the patients. While in the hospice, he discovered the now elderly Gloria, who was ill with suffering from Alzheimer's, and lo and behold, there was CJ who was taking care of her. He knew that his purpose was to comfort CJ and eventually help CJ to forgive Gloria. Eventually, Toby learned his purpose was to comfort his own girl, CJ, who also died in the hospice. Her kidney transplant worked for about 2 decades, and then she started having trouble again, and she made a choice. This was it. Toby, by this time called an angel dog by CJ, finally learns that his ultimate purpose and lesson was to love humans. Not just one person, but many. In the end, his reward when he died was to be with all the people he loved in his life. Toby was a good dog. Now, some strengths. What are some strengths of this book? One strength of A Dog's Journey is Cameron's uncanny ability to portray a dog's perspective or point of view at a high level of detail and accuracy. In my experience with dogs, here's an example. It was the same game. This is about the middle of the book when, I think it's about the time when Molly was there, and CJ was doing community service. You remember that part of the story. It was the same game. Andy was the person that CJ was working with, played every day. It did not seem like much fun to me when there were ropes to tug on and balls to chase, but people are like that. Again and again throughout the book, you read that phrase, people. He's making, a perspective about people. Their idea of play is is usually less fun than a dog's. Oh. I was drawn in with this approach, and it made me care much more deeply about the dogs and the people and what happens to them. For me, this was the power of excellent narrative writing. A second strength of the book was the way Cameron conveys emotion throughout the book. Joy, sadness through the heart of a dog, and how sometimes the dog doesn't understand humans' emotions. For example, whenever Gloria and CJ fought, and that was frequently, it left them both unhappy. And Molly, at that time, did not understand. And this is what Molly said. CJ would be unhappy and Gloria would be unhappy. I didn't understand because there seemed to be so much to be happy about, like bacon. Or the days when just two of us would lie in the backyard, CJ's fingers lightly touching my fur. A third strength of A Dog's Journey is how Cameron weaves or carries the themes of love and loyalty throughout the novel in the relationships with CJ and Molly and Max, and in the end, Toby. In the end, love and loyalty overcome all the worst, all the dark, all the pain CJ ever experienced, and Toby learned the importance of loving more than just his boy, Ethan. CJ and her love became Buddy's rock, foundation of his life, and gave him courage to fulfill his ultimate purpose, which was to love humans. And you recall, he stayed in that hospice until his death, faithfully being still with dying hospice patients. I don't like to talk about weaknesses. I don't even like to use the word weakness, but you may not agree, but one weakness was that in A Dog's Purpose, Buddy's being reunited with Ethan after several reincarnations or lifetimes is a real surprise plot twist, if you remember when we read A Dog's Purpose. Whereas in A Dog's Journey, it's almost taken for granted that the dog will be with CJ through different lives. You're just waiting till when CJ shows up. When's CJ going to show up? And so the surprise is missing, but maybe that's Cameron's twist in A Dog's Journey. A final evaluation. A Dog's Journey by Bruce Cameron is a 5-star tail wagger for me. And I hope it was for you too. It's an excellent and enjoyable book to read. What worked well for me was what I said earlier, that first strength. I appreciated the gift, the skill and the tact Cameron used to depict a dog's perspective, to see this and you're there looking at the world through a dog's eyes and thoughts, and that sense of smell, incredible. Gloria coming, Buddy could smell Gloria coming from a mile away, that flowery smell. You remember he used to, here comes Gloria. It's just overpowering. It was easy for him to detect. Through A Dog's point of view, I was able to experience love and loyalty at a level which helped me quickly realize how much I still need, to learn about love and loyalty in my own life. It's an unconditional love that endures the darkest of dark and the most difficult things in life, yet in the end yields the richest and deepest joy that we all experienced when we read this book in the relationship between CJ and her dogs. If you're not a dog lover, don't bother reading this book. Go hug your cat. But if you're like me, grab a blanket, curl up on your sofa, get your favorite beverage, and settle in for a while and be prepared to laugh, to cry, to smile, to yell at imaginary people, and of course, hug and love on your best furry friend. Thank you. Any questions? Do we take questions? Is that allowed? I forgot. Comments, questions, I welcome them. Was that helpful? I treated you as if you didn't read the book, though I know most of you did, right?
I will just say that I find myself looking at my dog and saying, what is he drinking?
Yes.
Times after reading.
Me too. Me too. That really deepens that perspective. We have 2 dogs at our home. They're sisters, lab terrier mixes, Coda and Melody. And Coda, if I were to see the dog, looks like a true lab, chocolate labs. She's the big dog. She weighs about 70, 75 pounds, is about 8 years old. And she follows her sister Melody around, who's more looks like a terrier, supposed to look. And their mother was the size of Melody. And you look at Coda and you see Melody. Melody's like 45 pounds. You go, how on earth did that happen? And I constantly wonder the same thing now after reading this book. I really do. I don't think we have any idea their capacity to make us better humans, because they do. They really do. Robert.
I hesitate to make what may be an inaccurate comment because I didn't read the book, but C.S. Lewis, I think, is the one who wrote about the 4 loves. And the first time I read that, I knew agape, eros, and filio, but storge, or I think is kind of a comfort, and that to me seems to apply to the relationship with dogs. I mean, there's something that I suppose, I hate to say this because I don't like cats so well. I mean, dogs are definitely better than cats, but even the cat can give you that kind of that kind of relationship. But a really good dog, I mean, tops everything as far as.
Oh yeah. Well, what's the classic? You know, when you come home, who comes to the door first? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. In some cases, your cat may sprint to the door, but most of the time, in our household, it's the dogs. I mean, I can't open the door because they're there, tags, wagging back and forth. You can find our cat. Say, where are you? That doesn't mean I don't love cats. Susie knows. Susie knows that I do. We have one. We did have 2. We had to put one down recently. His name was Socks. He's about 14 years old. Is that right? Yeah. We had Socks when we came here, and he finally grew a tumor around his heart. And yeah, who thought he was a dog? He ran with the dogs. He was a big between 20 and 25 pound cat. Just incredible. I'd never seen such a big cat in my entire life. I have something here, if I can find it, that I can put this in the mic. You will be, good grief, junk email. Somebody asked me another question. I'll see if I can. Go ahead.
Scott, just a comment. When we were back in Montgomery, we had a Boston Terrier.
Huh?
And then we decided to get another little dog, and an Australian Terrier.
Oh.
Now this little thing, we called him Elfie.
Mm-hmm.
He was very protective, extremely protective, to the degree that when the doorbell rang, he got between you and the door.
Yeah.
And if you tried to open the door, he'd bite you. So he bit our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
He took a nip at Jane, but he never took a nip at me. He wouldn't have survived, I don't think. But anyway, one morning, we decided that we had too much of Elfie.
Mm.
So on our way to work, I dropped him off at the shelter.
Mm.
And on the way home from work, I stopped to pick him up. He was already gone. And an older lady, living by herself, called us a day or so later and said, "What do you feed this dog?" Well, he liked Cheerios. I mean, along with other things, regular dog food.
Sure.
She was as happy as a clam because he was extremely protective. He was a loving dog.
Yeah.
But boy, if you tried to open the door, he was too protective. With her, it was just wonderful. But I was all prepared to pick him up again. And
Great story. Great story. This is that's one of our cats. I'm trying to see if it'll pick up in the. You hear him? Yeah. We're talking about dogs here, so I'm going to get back on subject.
But it sounds like a spoiler for the next book is probably going to be about cats.
I think so. That's what I told Susie on a walk, Helen. I said, well, you know, I don't know if you've read any more of Cameron's books. This guy is hilarious. He's not only a gifted writer, and especially about animals. You know, his whole idea to write these books was with his own dogs. He saw something in another dog, and he goes, I mean, are you that same dog? You know, reincarnated. So he started exploring that, and it just grew and grew and grew, and all the research he did, he built on that. And I said, Susie's more knowledgeable about cats in our family, and I've learned to love cats because of her. And I asked on the walk, I said, surely somebody has written about cats and write in this, you know, you could write in this way. But I don't know. That's something for the committee, Ann. I don't know.
Library cat, we'll try and find a cat. We've done one doing the library cat.
Oh, okay.
That was cute.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I have a copy of the book and a CD of the book, if anybody would like to borrow it.
Are you referring to the dog's drink? Oh, okay. Thank you.
If anybody would like to borrow it.
Thank you for sharing. Well, once again, thank you for letting me do this. You know I love dogs. I would have brought my dogs here, but I don't think they would have jumped on you and everything. So anyway.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Jane.
We really enjoyed
Thank
it.